Secondary learners, welcome back to the world of economics. Today, we shall learn about production, concept of production function, different technologies of production, total product, average product and marginal product, law of diminishing marginal product of labor, the production process, role and importance of firms and industries, identifying various types of producers in the economy, private production units, government production units and foreign production units. I, Ritu Gupta, will now take you through with each of these concepts. Let us first understand the concept of a production function. Production is defined as transformation of inputs into output. The resources used in production are called inputs and the goods and services produced are called output. For example, for the production of an output called rice, we require inputs such as agricultural land, seeds, fertilizers, plough, water, pesticides, diesel to run the tractor, etc. All these inputs have to be combined in some prescribed amounts to produce some quantity of rice. The production function tells us the technical relationship between inputs and output of a firm or a producer. It tells us the maximum quantity of output that can be produced with the help of given quantities of inputs. In short, the quantity of output is the function of inputs such as land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship and required raw materials. There is a direct relationship between the amounts of inputs and the amount of output produced. An increase in inputs leads to increase in output to a certain extent and vice versa. The aim of every producer is to maximize the quantity of output from the given amount of inputs. The inputs must be combined in a particular manner for production of a particular type of output. As you can see in the slide showing a tailoring shop, this requires a master who can cut the cloth as per measurement and one person over one stitching machine to stitch the cloth that has been cut by the master in order to make a garment. If workload is more, then another machine and a person to work with it can be added. The technology or method of production refers to the ratio in which inputs are combined to produce an output. So, the production function is also defined as the technological relationship that tells us the maximum output producible from various combinations of inputs. Now, let us understand the different technologies of production. Goods and services can be produced in more than one way. For example, the production of cloth can be made either with the help of hand loom or with the help of power loom. The first one, that is the hand loom, is labor intensive technology of production, and the second one, which is the power loom, is capital intensive technology of production. When a farmer makes use of wooden plough, bullocks, etc. in the production of food grains, he uses the labor intensive technology of production. On the other hand, when he uses tractor, pump set, harvester in the production of food grains, he uses capital intensive technology of production. Labor intensive technology is one when we make more use of labor and less use of capital per unit of output. This type of technology is used in household enterprises and in enterprises which make production for self-consumption or in case of small scale production. Capital intensive technology is when we make more use of capital and less use of labor per unit output in the production of our commodity, which is called as capital intensive technology of production. This type of technology is used when the production is made on a large scale for sale in the market in order to earn profits. It happens in corporations and government enterprises generally and in other large scale production of goods and services. Another aspect of organizing the production activity is division of labor. Division of labor increases the efficiency of workers, due to which large scale productions or splitting up of the production activity is possible. It also leads to different processes and assigns every process among different workers according to their aptitude and ability. So, division of labor can also be studied as two types. The first being product based division of labor. If a worker specializes in the production of a single good or service, it is called product based division of labor. In case of a small farmer, a potter, a cobbler or a carpenter in a village, we see that there is the use of product based division of labor. It is very common in household enterprises of developing countries like ours. When the production is made for self-consumption or on a small scale, there is the use of product based division of labor. Product based division of labor. The second division based technology is known as process based division of labor. In big production units like corporates and government enterprises, where the production is made on a very large scale, there is the use of process based division of labor. In case of process based division of labor, the production of a commodity is divided into many processes and a worker specializes in only one or two processes, and that is why it is called process based division of labor. For example, bread company manufactures bread. Raw material for bread is wheat flour. Conversion of wheat flour into bread requires 3 or 4 processes. The flour has to be converted into dough and dough has to be kept into containers for baking and containers are kept in ovens for baking. The baked bread is cut into appropriate sizes and packed. All processes required in manufacturing of bread are undertaken by different workers and nobody can claim that he has manufactured the bread. He can say that he has performed 1 or 2 processes in the preparation of bread. In government sector also, the supply of any single good or service depends on the process based division of labor. For example, take the case of a simple street lighting to be provided in a newly constructed group housing complex. It undergoes several processes. First is the installation of electric poles in the streets. The second process is connecting all poles with electrical wires. The third is fitting electric bulbs and tubes. And the final stage is the release of electric supply from substation. All these processes are undertaken by different workers. For removing any defect in the functioning of the system, there are other team of workers from maintenance department who put the system in order. Division of labor increases the efficiency of workers and leads to the possibility of inventions and discoveries because of the repetitive nature of work. It encourages the use of machines in place of manual labor. It also leads to use of capital intensive technique of production. It's time now for us to understand how we can measure production with the concepts of total product, average product and marginal product. There are mainly three concepts relating to production of a commodity. As I just now said, they are total product denoted as TP, average product denoted as AP and marginal product denoted as MP. The total product refers to the total quantity of output of a commodity at a particular level of employment of an input, say labor, when the employment of all other inputs remains unchanged. This is an important qualification. All other inputs remain unchanged. TP can be increased or decreased by increasing or decreasing the units of labor employed. So, amount of TP directly depends upon the amount of labor used. Because it can be changed, labor is hence called the variable factor. Average product, that is AP, is the output per unit of a variable input, say labor. It can be obtained by dividing TP by the number of units of labor used. As shown, AP is equal to TP upon L, where L is the number of units of labor input. Marginal product is defined as increase or decrease in TP resulting due to addition of one extra unit of labor employed, keeping all other inputs unchanged. In order to increase output or TP, we have to increase the employment of labor by one or more number of units. The smallest number by which labor can be increased is, of course, 1. Since marginal means very small, accordingly we can say that MP is the output contributed by the last unit of labor. Hence, the equation for MP becomes MP equals TPLL minus TP from L minus 1 units. An example here is that one laborer works with a sewing machine to stitch 2 shirts. Another laborer joins and the two could stitch 6 shirts. Calculate the MP of the second laborer. The answer is MP is equal to TP2 minus TP2 minus 1, which is 6 minus 2 equal to 4. So, the MP of the second laborer is 4. L being the units of labor employed or the level of employment of variable factor, that is labor. It is given numerically as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 and so on. L is equal to 0 means there is no employment of labor. L minus 1 is the previous level of employment given L. For example, if L is 3, then L minus 1 becomes 2 and so on. The three concepts of TP, AP and MP can also be understood with the help of a numerical as shown. Let us see the table as shown. In this table, we see that with 1 unit of labor, total output or TP is 0. Second unit of labor gives us TP as 10, with AP and MP also as 10, and with the third unit of labor employed, the total product increases to 22, as a result of which average product increases to 11 and marginal product becomes 12. And so on. As we scroll down the table, we can see how total product, marginal product and average product change. When L is equal to 1, it means the number of labor employed is 1 unit or level of labor employment is 1. At this level, as I just explained, we get 10 units of output, and AP, which is TP upon L, is equal to 10 as well, because it is 10 divided by 1 and so it is 10. Now, if we have to calculate MP, we always deduct or subtract the existing total product from the previous one to get the MP. Let us see when MP for 8th unit of labor has to be calculated. TP8 minus TP8 minus 1, which is TP7, gives us 56 minus 56, that is 0. Since MP is the difference between two consecutive values of TP, it can also be negative. For 9 units of labor, as we can see, the MP is negative minus 2 because it is 54 minus 56. And this leads us to a very interesting fact in economics, which is known as the law of diminishing marginal product of labor. We can see that the value of MP increases for first 3 units of labor, that is from 10 at L is equal to 1 to 12 at L is equal to 2 to 14 at L is equal to 3. Thereafter, the value of MP decreases for the next 4 units of labor, that is from 14 at L is equal to 3 to 8 at L is equal to 4 to 6 at L is equal to 5 and to 4 at L is equal to 6 to 2 also at L is equal to 7 and finally to 0 at L is equal to 8. Finally, at L is equal to 9, the value of MP becomes negative. In other words, after increasing temporarily for some time, the marginal product of labor eventually decreases. In general way, we can say that with continuous increase in the variable factor labor, its marginal product will increase initially till certain point is reached, but after that it will decrease and become negative. This is popularly known as the law of diminishing marginal product of labor. To understand the law properly, think that there are two factors of production, labor and capital, where capital is in the form of a machine. Say the labor is the variable factor to increase the output and capital is the fixed factor on which only one laborer is working. Maybe one laborer is not sufficient to use the machine efficiently, so the unit of labor is increased to 2 and then to 3. Initially, when we increase labor, it becomes fruitful because the laborers can handle different works as per their efficiency and choice. So, output of the extra unit of labor increases, but there is a limit to which labor can be increased because then we may require another machine. But machine is a fixed factor and cannot be increased or decreased. So, as a result of increasing the variable factor labor only, machine gets overused. Also, the work of a machine cannot be done by the laborers that we are going on adding. So, the output of each of the extra unit of labor, that is MP of labor, beyond a point starts decreasing. A very pertinent question arises here. To what extent can the variable factor be increased or employed? If we refer back to the table shown, we can see that when labor has been increased up to 9, the MP has started becoming negative. At employment of the 9th unit of labor, MP is minus 2 and then at 10th it falls further to minus 4. Because of this, the TP also has started falling. This clearly implies that labor should not be increased up to 9 and beyond. Employment of labor should stop before 9 units, which means labor should be increased or employed up to 8 units. When 8 units of labor are employed, the MP has become minimum at this point, which is 0, and TP, if you see, has become the maximum, which is 56. Hence, we learn that increase in the variable factor should take place till the point where its marginal product becomes minimum and stop employing further before the marginal product becomes negative. Production process involves procuring or arranging the factors of production from the owners of the factors, forming the right combination of factors, purchasing and creating an inventory of raw materials for its use in the production, producing, storing, and finally selling the output. Somebody should take lead in organizing the production activity. The person who takes such lead is called an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is the art of organizing the production activity by the entrepreneur. He has to make efforts to bring labor by paying wage. Similarly, land and building and machinery have to be purchased or procured, either by taking loan or by paying rent and interest respectively. An entrepreneur himself can keep some margin in the form of profit for all his efforts. Let us now also understand the role and importance of firms and industries in production. A firm is an individual production unit which produces goods and services for sale in the market. Normally, a firm is concerned with the production of a single commodity. An industry, on the other hand, is a group of all the firms making production of a commodity, which is one type of good. For example, a shoe company is a firm which makes shoes, but the shoe industry includes all the firms producing shoes. There are various types of industries supplying us different types of goods and services. For example, agriculture industry supplies us food grains, vegetable, fruits, cotton, pulses, milk and butter, etc. These things are required by all of us. In the same way, other industries supply various other goods and services such as clothes, televisions, computers, scooters, refrigerators, air conditioners, cars, etc. So, all these industries play a vital role in our day-to-day life. Firms and industries have an importance in our daily life. This has to be understood. First and foremost, they produce goods and services for consumption. These days, human wants are growing at a fast rate. In order to satisfy these wants, various types of goods and services are required for our daily consumption. All these goods and services are provided by firms and industries. Firms and industries also provide us with goods for investment. We require investment goods such as machines, plants, transport vehicles, buses, trucks, railways and aeroplanes, ships, etc. and various other things for investment. All these things are produced by, firms and industries. Firms and industries also provide employment to many persons. They are the source of employment to people. Most of the people get employment in firms and industries by which they get income for the satisfaction of their wants. We cannot live without employment. So, the importance of firms and industries can easily be understood. Firms and industries also provide us with infrastructure, that is the facilities. They provide us energy, transport, communication, health, education and housing, which is the basic requirement. Without the development of infrastructure, the all-round development of the country is not possible. So, we cannot deny the role and importance of firms and industries. We now need to identify various types of producers in the economy. These types of producers, identified on the basis of ownership, can be broadly classified into the following: indigenous production units and foreign production units. Production units located in the country and owned by the residents of the country are called indigenous production units. Around us, most of the production units are indigenous. Farmhouses in villages, shops, small factories, big factories, hospitals, schools, colleges, cinema halls, restaurants, dairy farms, government offices, self-employed doctors, lawyers and teachers, all are examples of indigenous production units. Since production units are further divided into private and government, the indigenous production units can be further classified into private production units and government-owned production units. Most of the shops, offices, factories are owned by private persons or groups or families. They produce goods and services for sale in the market with the aim of earning profit. Private sector units can further be classified on the basis of number of owners of such units. Most of the small units like labor, washerman, cobbler, tailor, milk vendor, etc. are owned by a single person, but some of the production units may be owned by more than one person. The number of persons may be 2, 20, 100,000 or a lakh or even more. On the basis of number of owners, these private sector production units are further classified into first, sole proprietorship, second, partnership, third, company or corporations, and fourth, cooperative societies, and fifth, private non-profit organizations or NPOs. A sole proprietorship is a production unit owned by a single person. He or she is responsible for the profit and loss of the production unit. He is responsible for the management and working of the production unit as well. A partnership firm is owned by 2 or more persons, the maximum number being 20. Owners of such production units are called partners of the company. All the partners are collectively responsible for the management and working of the production unit. The share of profit and loss is distributed amongst the partners according to agreement made at the time of forming the partnership. Company or corporation is a production unit owned by a large number of persons. The sum invested in the company is divided into shares. The buyers of these shares are called shareholders. They are all the owners of the company. In private company, the minimum number of shareholders is 2 and the maximum number is 50. But in a public company, minimum number is 7, but there is no maximum limit. These shareholders select some person for the management of the company who are called the directors of the company. These companies have been established under the Companies Act 1956 in India. The profit of the company is distributed amongst the shareholders according to the shares held by them. A cooperative society is also a production unit managed by a number of persons. It is a voluntary association of persons for mutual benefit. It aims at achieving through self-help and collective efforts. It works according to the Cooperative Societies Act 1912. The minimum number of shareholders is 10, but there is no upper limit. The shareholders select some persons among themselves for the management of the society. The profit of the society are divided amongst the shareholders according to the shares held by them. Cooperative stores which sell various goods to consumers at reasonable rates, cooperative housing societies which provide flats and houses to its members are good examples of cooperative societies. The Kendriya Bhandar, which provides various items to consumers, is a very big cooperative society. Private non-profit organizations or NPOs are private production units which are run by institutions such as trusts, societies, etc. These are known to us as charitable hospitals, charitable schools, welfare societies, etc. Such production units provide services mainly with the aim of serving the member of society as a whole without any aim to earn profit. The government provides a lot of services such as education, healthcare, law and order, post and telegraph, transport, telecommunication and broadcasting, etc. Some of the organizations providing these services are run by the departments and ministries of government. They are called departmental enterprises. Some examples of departmental enterprises are the Indian Railways under the Ministry of Railways, the All India Radio and Doordarshan, which are sister concerns of Prasar Bharati under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. The government has direct control over the functioning of these enterprises. There is another type of government production units which are supported and funded by the government but which function independently. They are big corporations and autonomous in nature. These units are non-departmental enterprises and are called public sector undertakings or PSUs. Some examples of public sector undertakings are Indian Airlines, Hindustan Machine Tools, Minerals and Metals Trading Corporation, Life Insurance Corporation, General Insurance Corporation and Indian Oil Corporation. A foreign production unit is located in the country but is owned by foreigners or non-residents of the country. In such production units, the contribution of foreigners must be more than 50% of total capital. The foreign production units have been further classified into multinationals and collaborations. These are firms, that is multinationals, are firms which have their main office in one country but have their business activities spread in many countries. These are called multinational corporations or MNCs very popularly because they operate in more than one country other than the country of their origin. Collaborations, on the other hand, are production units in which foreigners and domestic entrepreneurs participate jointly. Such production units are partly indigenous and partly foreign. These are treated as foreign production units in terms of ownership if more than 50% of its total capital is contributed by the foreigners or by non-residents. With this, we end our lesson today on production. I hope production, its various concepts and the various production units that we have studied as firms and industries and the private and government owned, indigenous and foreign collaborations all are clear to each one of you and it helps you understand your daily newspaper much better. Thank you.